Meanwhile, the Labour Party is struggling to come to terms with its own pretty dismal showing in the European election results. They came third with 14% of the votes, well behind the Liberal Democrats. They now have 10 MEPs, half the number they had in the last European Parliament. Many in the shadow cabinet are now pushing for Jeremy Corbyn to unequivocally back calls for a second referendum and to campaign to remain. Richard Corbett is the leader of the Labour Party at the European Parliament. He successfully retained his seat for Yorkshire and the Humber at the EU elections. Thanks for joining us. Do you think that Labour's strategy should now change?
I think we need to be much clearer that we are now backing a public vote on any Brexit outcome, and Jeremy said that yesterday, and I'm pleased that that is now clearer. It was there in our manifesto, but it was tucked away in lots of other wording. This is now moving towards a much more clear position.
Is it? So what's so clear now? Because it's still the position, isn't it, to say, well, we'd go for a general election. If we can't have that, we'd go for a referendum, but we still don't know which way Labour would campaign in it, and Labour hasn't fully thrown the front bench behind that.
Yesterday a public vote on any Brexit deal, so that and why not? Because Brexit is turning out to be so different from what was promised by the Leave campaign 3 years ago. It's only right to put it back to the people and say, do you want to go ahead with this or not? Because it's very different from what the Leave campaign promised.
Jeremy Corbyn hasn't unequivocally come out and said that, has he? He keeps saying that they'll have more conversations.
Well, you always want conversations, of course, and if there is a vote on a deal, you would probably want it to be a better deal than the one that you have now. But the principle that the deal should go back to the public is something that he articulated yesterday.
Why is Keir Starmer, why Tom Watson, other members in the party sort of increasingly coming out and sounding much stronger on this than the party leadership? There doesn't sound like there's unity within the party.
You just cited our Brexit shadow minister, you just cited our deputy leader. The leadership of the party are all moving in that direction of saying we need a public vote.
There are some who think that there needs to be a change in the leadership if Jeremy Corbyn doesn't come out strongly enough on this and make Labour the party of Remain.
I don't think there's any appetite to open the leadership question at the moment. Jeremy was elected and re-elected by solid majorities. I think it's about how we all move together to this better position.
Would you like to see the Labour Party become the party of Remain?
Well, if I'd like us to win the principle in Parliament that any public deal, any deal should be put back to the public. I'm sure in that situation, if there is a new referendum, Labour will of course be campaigning to remain in the European Union.
If there is a second referendum, I mean, obviously Labour would need to be absolutely clear which side of the
It would be a first referendum on the actual deal.
On the actual deal. So, which side? What would Labour campaign? What would Labour vote for? What would Labour campaign for?
The choice would be this deal, which is rather different.
This deal that they've repeatedly had the chance to vote on and have voted against.
This deal, or an improved deal, if that is possible, but that would go back to the public. This is Brexit. You can see it now, black on white. That's the actual deal. Do you want to go ahead with it or not?
But the party leadership couldn't vote for that deal. Couldn't campaign for that deal, could they? The deal that they voted against repeatedly.
No, I've said we would be campaigning in such a situation against a bad, rotten, job-destroying, rights-threatening Tory
So then
deal.
Labour does become the party of Remain?
Well, in that situation, of course, we would campaign to remain rather than go ahead with Brexit.
So why not say right now, we are now the party of Remain?
Well, if we're saying we're against leaving without a deal, we're against the rotten deal there is on the table, we think it should go to the public, of course we're not going to campaign for Brexit on that basis, we will be campaigning to remain.
So why doesn't Jeremy Corbyn come out and say we're the party of Remain?
Well, he said we want a public vote on any deal, and it's quite clear we're opposing.
It just feels like we keep, people keep tying themselves in knots with semantics, doesn't it? The sort of
yes, well, that's your quibbling, the exact wording he's used.
Well, the term that's been applied to the Labour policy is constructive ambiguity. Can ambiguity ever actually be constructive?
Labour never described its position as such. That's commentators have said that. And there was a fair point to say we weren't clear enough. That's indeed why we hemorrhaged votes to the Greens and to the Liberal Democrats in these European elections, more than anywhere else. We weren't clear enough in our commitment to a public vote on any deal. It was tucked away in our manifesto, but we weren't we didn't articulate it very well. That's fair criticism.
So when would you expect Jeremy Corbyn to come out and not say we need more conversations, but say, right, we are now then going for a confirmatory vote, or whatever you want to call it.
He said it yesterday.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. And he's written to all Labour MPs saying the same thing.
Okay. Thank you very much, Richard Corbett. Thank you.
Okay.